and I would like to welcome you all to the webinar today. A special welcome goes to the East and the Far East, where we say hello and good evening to our friends in Hong Kong, to Richard Chung, to Sam Naty, and to Wayne Henrys. All the three are presenters today. We say good evening to Singapore and Macau, and the same to Australia and New Zealand. Good day and welcome to all Europeans from Norway to Cyprus. A special greetings goes to Rico Lücking from German Toad. It's his birthday today. Herzlichen Glückwunsch. We say hello to all partners in Africa, in Morocco, and also in South Africa. We welcome the colleagues from 4Racing in South Africa, the new racing and betting organization in South Africa. 4Racing and the team of Fundi Sitebe did have a very good start some weeks ago. They started 1 December. They had a good start some weeks ago, hosting the World Pool Races in Cape Town by end of January. It was a great success, and if the turnover goes up to 100 times the normal, I would say this is a really great success. Congrats to the guys. We go to America, where we say good morning to USA and Canada, and also to the South Americas. It's early morning there. Thanks for being with us so early. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, some words of introduction to our webinar today with the title Development of Commingling and the Future of the Toad Protocol. Commingling started in the USA in the 1980s when racetracks started to bet from track to track. Therefore, the three American toad providers, United Toad, Am-Toad, and Autotoad, developed the ITSP, the Inter-Toad System Protocol, the language, so to say, between the different toad systems. In the following years, ITSP started its success around the world and enabled commingling worldwide, from country to country, from agents to the tracks. And the queen of commingling is the World Pool. The World Pool, that's special from my side to say, is the most exciting subject in the horse racing and betting industry in these days. It is already a great success, and it will grow step by step. A great thanks to the guys who have developed the idea and started this project. This was mainly Hong Kong, and I think that also the guys from Royal Ascot were involved. The World Pool will help to save the future for the industry of racing. And when more and more countries and bet types are contributing to the World Pool, we may also start again the discussion about the global bet, which might become the cherry on the cake in the World Pool. Today we will hear more about the plans, the fixtures, and the technology of the World Pool. We have three high qualified experts today. They will inform and explain where we are with the World Pool, where we can go, and how can we reach our goals technically. Our three experts are Richard Chung, Executive Director, International Business Development at the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Sam Naty, Head of Commingling in the Hong Kong Jockey Club, and Wayne Henrys, Executive Manager, Betting Solutions, also from Hong Kong Jockey Club. We will start with Richard, we may say the father of the World Pool. And before I hand over to Richard, as always, you have the chance to send questions, and I hope you have a lot of questions. We will try to answer all of them during the show, during the webinar, and yes, we try to do it. And if not, then we will answer them later on, but we try to answer every question during our webinar today. So Richard, the floor is yours, please.
Great, thank you very much. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everybody. And I guess if the presentation can be shared on screen, then I will start. Thanks a lot, Wayne. So this presentation is simply talking about the Whirlpool concept, a bit of a history, what is it doing right now, and where it's going to be heading in future. So on the next page, we'll see if the page can be flipped. May I see if the page can be flipped, or we have a bit of a technical issue?
Wayne, can you help?
Or did we lose Wayne?
Yeah.
Apologize, Richard, I'm back now.
Yeah.
Oh.
Please see, sorry, Wayne, if that can be flipped. Yeah, great. Thanks a lot. Okay, so just as a very simple concept behind commingling, and whether in the middle it's HKJC or not, it actually doesn't matter. And it can be anyone who is a host of a racing pool. Essentially, in the red dot, you have a host who is usually either hosting the race or being the wagering operator, which with the largest proportion of customers that has relationship with the racetrack. And then the main engine behind the red dot is actually the yellow dot, where you have a large local customer base. And in the case of Hong Kong, for all of the races we do, whether it's through our race course, our digital, or the retail. And then the other part of what commingling is very important is you would also have the green bubble there, which is actually all the rest of the customers in different jurisdictions. And equally important, you see the purple rectangle, where through a relationship of commercial and technology with all our commingling partners, we are able to bring the local product to the customers in the green bubble vis-a-vis the commingling partner, i.e. what we call hubs or guests. And it can be, for the case of Hong Kong, it can be anyone ranging from PGI to UK Toll to the Woodbine racetracks and to PMU in France, anywhere. For us, we actually are connected to more than 60 partners to do this. And this is what creates the ecosystem. Next page, please, Wayne. And if you look at the Hong Kong commingling map, we started our journey roughly in 2014. And as of today, thanks to both the strength of our racing product, as well as our technology from our IT team and our commercial development and everyone else in the world, we are distributing our racing product to over 25 jurisdictions, racing jurisdictions in the world via more than 60 B2B commingling partners. And essentially, we are everywhere with the exception of South America. Next page. And if you look at how important commingling is to the Hong Kong, and what you see is it used to be account for 4% of our racing wagering income. And in recent years, it accounts to somewhere between 16 to 17%. And obviously, if you look at some of the numbers in 2021, we were also affected by COVID. And so I would expect this number to be going to a healthy level of 20% on a steady stage, or 20 to 25%. And besides inbound commingling, where we take our pools, we serve customers from all over the world in Hong Kong. In some cases, we also do outbound commingling. And to France is an example. And the decision rule of whether for us Hong Kong, whether we inbound or we outbound is a pure question on liquidity. Because for some of the French races, like the ARC, clearly, there is a lot of liquidity on those races in France than in Hong Kong. So in those cases, we actually do outbound commingling. But in the majority of the cases, for the Hong Kong product, clearly, we are doing inbound. And then, so after we are running commingling for 3-4 years with some success, and one day, some finance guys talking to me, Richard, we are building this, wagering system, which is kind of expensive. It is a fixed cost. And I also have a operation center in Hong Kong, which is 7 times 24. So what can we do to further maximize the utilization of our assets? And then that leads to the initial concept of what we call commingling on simulcast races, where essentially we are offering commingling service for races that are not being held in Hong Kong, but they are global world-class races where Hong Kong have a good liquidity, but we can also do a role in terms of consolidating all the volume to one place, one odds calculation engine, one dividend engine, and to serve everyone. And then as a result, what would happen? Then, first of all, we'll be with, as we know, in pool betting, with more liquidity, there's always bigger bets and there's more exciting bets of different variety. And that means creating additional income for everyone. Because clearly, for example, there are races at that time when we discussed, there are races in Royal Ascot where fans in Singapore would be interested in. But at the same time, maybe just given the time zone difference, given the size of the value, maybe it's not worth it for individual jurisdiction to create all the B pools. So why not we bundle it together, and as a result, it become an offerable product for everyone on earth or who is in the Whirlpool network. So as a result, it creates additional income stream for everyone. It's more income for Ascot because as you know, they will be charging a IP fee based on turnover. It will be additional income for Hong Kong because clearly, as we process the bets, we'll be charging something as a thin margin on that. And that will be additional income for everyone who in the past may not have Royal Ascot, but now become part of their simulcast program. And even for those who have been doing B pool, putting it in a consolidated pool actually increase the volume, increase the jackpots, increase the bet variety. So what we mean by increasing income for everyone. And then through everyone being on a network, being on a race that everybody will bet on in the same pool, we are directly and indirectly creating promotion for the top international events. And later on, you would see some more branding example, because only with the critical mass can you then actually create the noise. And then the third way would be, again, for some of the bigger customers, the bigger punters, they do need liquidity. And in some of the win and place bets, once they see the combined liquidity, it becomes much more than what they would do in their local market, or they would be able to do in a fixed odds betting shop, which because, as you know, in fixed odds, if you try to bet too much, then their trader will change the price. And then also we would like to create through the program, create more awareness for horses, jockeys, and trainer. And then indirectly, it also promotes tote betting as a whole, as a funding model back for the racing industry. So these are the rationale behind why we created Whirlpool. And essentially, we started off with Royal Ascot being the first Whirlpool, and that was happening 4 or 5 years ago, and it has been a very happy experience for us to be working with Royal Ascot as well as the UK tote. And what we have done in the last few years, other than Royal Ascot, we are seeing the growth in the turnover, we are seeing the growth in the noise, And then as a result, we are also getting more traction beyond Royal Ascot into other events, such as the Dubai World Cup, which was a very exciting event that in a few days ago. And we started that, continue to roll out to more and more global events. And in the case for Dubai, it was even more obvious because there was actually no local pool in Dubai. And as a result, Hong Kong became a very natural place to be pooling together all the bets. And in this case, we work with PGI, we work with UK Tote and many other partners. And if you using Royal Ascot as an example, when we started in 2000, before we started in 2018, when it is only a pure Hong Kong simulcast program, our turnover was, as you see in the picture. But then after 3 years, we actually see the impact on the pool turnover with the consolidated volume between UK and Hong Kong. And thanks to the UK Tote team to expand the distribution. And we also get direct volume from France, from Singapore. Then you actually see a doubling of that pool for Royal Ascot, which actually benefits everybody. And I think the number would have been higher had it not because of COVID, if the race course can be opened. And then in terms of where the money flows, you can actually see it's a bit of a complicated diagram, but I kind of like it. So what you see is you have customers in Canada, in US, and in Ireland, and in the UK, all consolidated at the UK Tote level, and also last but not least, South Africa. And then UK Tote pool their volume to Hong Kong. And then at the same time, Hong Kong is also taking direct bets from Singapore, from Tabcorp in Australia, and then New Zealand operations, as well as from the PMU. So this is gradually, you see the participation, this has gradually become more and more towards the vision of being a true world pool. And in this year, we have just started the year clearly. Other than Royal Ascot, we are going to be hosting World Pool events for, we just did the Dubai Super Saturday and Dubai World Cup, and we will be doing the Oaks Day, 2000 Guinness, the Goodwood Festival, the Ebor Festivals, and the British Champions Day in cooperation with partner. And also in South, we are also doing World Pool events on some South African, the major days, being the Mat Day and the Champions Cup Day. So we will continue to, because of the fact that the concepts actually work and it seems to be generating buzz, Hong Kong Jockey Club will continue to be expanding and with, cooperating with the rest of the world. And not only, I have to say, not only on the commercial side or on the financial side, we are also working with different race course to try to do more branding when it comes to on-course visuals. And I think that we cooperate a lot with the UK Tote team to do things on course, which is very successful. And also likewise in South Africa. And we are also get naming rights of certain races. So net, I would say it is a, the whole idea of commingling, as Hubert said, it was a concept, since from the 80s. And I think the Hong Kong Jockey Club has gone through a journey to be taking it for the local Hong Kong product level, which became a 20%, important 20% source of income for us. And meanwhile, we are also working with the rest of the racing world, in sync with the spirit of the World Tote Association to grow the World Pool, to bring in more events. And then hopefully this is an act where we do see, global racing getting together closer and closer and creating value for everybody. And I have to say, Hubert, you're very kind to name me like the father of the World Pool. I think that's that's a very kind words. Personally, as some of you know, I'm going to leave the Hong Kong Jockey Club in a few months' time. I decided to do something else in my life. But either way, I'm sure this World Pool concept, this commingling concept will continue to thrive, in our community. And I will become a keen customer wherever there's a World Pool in the world. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much, Richard, for this presentation. It was very impressive, and I'm sure that there will come a number of questions. Let me first start with some questions. Correct me if I'm wrong, there are 37 events for the course of this year in plan. Is it correct? And which are the plans?
Yeah, actually for Hong Kong Jockey Club, we have a customer quota of 37. There are 37 meetings where we can be broadcasting and offering betting in a year. And of that 37, not all of them are Whirlpool today, because they are still, because when we select our 37 meetings, it is based on a combination of customer interest, the quality of racing, and obviously the global interest, i.e. Whirlpool, will become another factor. So in the end, I think we end up with probably close to 15 to 20 days where we'll be doing that. And because, for example, in events where we were broadcasting Japanese races, unfortunately, due to regulatory reasons, Japan is not a participant in commingling and Whirlpool, but races are indeed extremely exciting and high quality. So we have to do some races which is non-Whirlpool. But I can imagine, 37 is the ceiling right now. I think we are halfway there, and I'm sure that as we continue to develop, we'll be able to convert some more simulcasts into Whirlpool, whether it is Hong Kong hosting or elsewhere of the world is hosting. Whoever has the bigger liquidity should be the host. And meanwhile, if my colleagues in Hong Kong Jockey Club continue to work on, I'm sure we'll be able to lobby the Hong Kong government to do more broadcasting of more events, which by then there will be more Whirlpool opportunities. And what I do want to say is, again, Hong Kong Jockey Club is, a key host of the Whirlpool, but it doesn't mean that all Whirlpools has to be hosted in Hong Kong. It's only a concept for the racing community.
Those 37, are they coming from the regulator in Hong Kong? Is there a limit which you have as Hong Kong Jockey Club, or would you say it is possible to go in the next years to more than 100 Whirlpool events?
Yeah, that 37 is a regulatory boundary. In fact, when I started with the Hong Kong Jockey Club, we were probably at 10 or 15. And then there were 2 times, and then I think I've done 2 lobbying. Once increased by 8, and by the other times increased by 5. So, as like most government, and there's always other, anti-gambling people in society that may or may not think you're creating too much wagering opportunities in the world. So I think it's like any regulatory changes, it has to be a step-by-step basis, but I'm sure that my colleagues over time will be able to convince our Hong Kong government to grant us more quotas to do simulcast, which then would become more opportunities for Whirlpool. Yeah.
We have a first question here. Should the policy of VOTA and Hong Kong Jockey Club be that all VOTA members can join the Whirlpool, as some of VOTA members are currently commercially excluded from joining Whirlpool? So, question, should all VOTA members be able to join the pool?
Actually, well, first of all, of course, I wear multiple hats. I see VOTA as one of the most important industry association. And then I also see the Hong Kong Jockey Club as one of the wagering operator. And these are 2 different entities. So I don't think that they should directly equate to each other. But of course, as part of the Whirlpool, we are definitely, I think Hong Kong Jockey Club would be keen to accept as many people to connect to the Whirlpool as possible, provided that they are, they got their regulatory legal license, or which is the hygiene factor, either directly connect to Hong Kong Jockey Club or via one of our hub partners, such as a UK Tote or a or PGI. So I just don't see why that's not happening.
Yeah, thank you for that.
But of course, I think, just to be very honest, there's always going to be kind of, in any Whirlpool deal, there's always going to be a commercial arrangement, just like a commingling. because ultimately, as pool operators, we can only, the whole industry can only afford the takeout rate of the product. So I think that's a given, because we will not be able to. So and each party in the value chain would be needing to make some money. The racing, the one who hosts the race have to make the majority, and then it will be all the different wagering partners. So I think it's usually, if it's not a regulatory issue, then it will be the economics has to be worked out so that it works out for everybody. However, there's one thing that I do want to share here, is because once you become being part of a world pool, the question of equity become a issue. Because if it is a B pool product, you can argue the takeout rate can be different, the rebate structure can be different. But if you ask me, if you really want to get world pool being kind of growing into a real global ecosystem, you have to make sure that, or those who are in the commercial deals have to make sure that no matter you wager on that same race in UK, in Hong Kong, in Macau, in Singapore, it should be more or less the same terms when it comes to takeout, when it comes to consumer protection, when it comes to rebate. And if there's one part of the system which is offering such a much better deal than the other part of than consumers in another part of the system, then the system won't work. And I think that would be, and in my mind, after running pool business for more than for 12 years, it's not long, it's not short. One thing I do learn very important is it's very important to ensure that all participants are being treated fairly, no matter where they wager from. And that's going to be something that it's not easy. It's maybe a theoretical ideal, but I thought it is something that the balance has to work out. Otherwise, the concept will fall apart, and any pool betting will fall apart.
Yeah, we saw some very important info about the turnovers, and you mentioned that Royal Ascot turnover has doubled in a time of 4 years, and we saw also the South African results from the Met end of January, where we were up to 100 times the normal turnover. Where do you see the perspectives of turnover for the next years? If you see that, let's say, the turnover on Dubai World Cup day last Saturday in win and place was around 800 to 1 million euro per race, and the same on place, and a bit more for the Quinella and the Quinella place. These are very, very high turnovers. And where do you see the perspectives?
Yeah, first of all, to explain why there was very strong growth in the earlier years is because of participation. Clearly, in the past, before there's World Pool, I don't think Hong Kong is participating in all 5 days. When I was working there already, Hong Kong is not participating in all 5 days of Royal Ascot. But because of the World Pool, so as a result, and and part of our relationship, especially with Ascot, we decided that, well, in order to do it, you cannot do World Pool only for 4 days out of 5 or 3 days out of 5 of the whole carnival. So, okay, let's do the whole thing. So just by the sheer participation, that's actually one lever in terms of, bring existing customer. And then the second one would simply be, because of the pooled liquidity, it does attract people it does give you more stable odds. Because of combined pool, it does make certain bet types in the past not possible, but now possible. Like, for example, there are bet types, like if I look at some of our simulcast races, even in Royal Ascot in the past, our TS betting, if you just rely on very Hong Kong customers, it is a subscale pool in my mind. But now, given the fact that everything is pooled together, they are US customers which are keen on these exotics. There are some UK bettors, and there will be customers from all over the world. It makes certain pools in the past might not be liquid enough as a pool. Now it becomes a reality. So, for example, for Royal Ascot, and as soon as the technology is up, we'll be able to offer a pick 3 in the Royal Ascot, which is not offered in previous years in the World Pool. So we would love to do it. And there will be other new bet types like when I discussed with the UK told, for example, PlaySport is right now not part of the World Pool program. It is a successful pool betting in the UK, but Hong Kong customers are not playing that at all because there's no such protocol. So the second lever, so the first lever is participation. The second lever is sheerly because of liquidity, there will be increase in the number of bet type variety. And then the third would clearly be whenever the pool is big, you tend to attract bigger punter. And I would say, if I look at Royal Ascot this year, I would expect another 10 to 15% increase from last year. Part of the reason was because, as I mentioned, whether it's COVID impact in Hong Kong or COVID impact in the UK, in the last few years, I think the number was a little bit understated because of COVID. Our betting shops cannot be open, for example, but we are hopeful that we'll be able to open them in April, in May timeframe, so which will be good enough for Royal Ascot in June. So I just feel that this product will continue to grow by 8 to 10% a year. That would be a good number to aim for.
Yeah, so you see a great potential in the future of the World Pool and the different bet types, and you are going to add more bet types, as I understood from your words. Are there special plans? Which bet types are you going to double trio, triple trio, or those bet types?
No, I think PlaySport or something similar to a 6-up is important to add, because right now in the World Pool, it still does not have a jackpotable pool bet types. So it got all the win and plays. You think we're adding in Forecast, Quinella. We are going to add Pick 3 into the menu as soon as technology is ready. But I think that's all good, and that's all differentiable with fixed odds betting in the classic kind of fixed odds betting scenario. But I still think that creating bet types that have jackpots, whether it's a PlaySport or it's a 6-up, or whatever you call it, I think it's very important. I mean, another thing that I think the World Pool should consider would be things like Jockey Challenge, which is a fixed odds bet type, but it's a very different type of bet type vis-a-vis a fixed odds on win or place. And I think this type of bet types would, to be honest, in Hong Kong, even when we broadcast any festival, we will not be able to create a big enough pool on that because our customers might not be familiar with all the jockeys. But now, if we create a global pool, then I'm sure a global pool on who is the winning jockey in the whole Royal Ascot Carnival or in the whole Dubai Carnival or whatever carnival you decide, and whatever point system, I think those become much more puntable product with liquidity. So I would definitely think towards the direction of multi-race exotics and jackpots and kind of champions kind of oriented bet types.
And if I understand you correct, you are highly interested in bigger exotic bets, which leads us also to the wonderful discussion of the global bet.
Yeah, and I think the key word here will be the jackpot. And I think different jurisdictions will have to agree on the way how the jackpot pool is being contributed. Because to be honest, if it is a local Hong Kong product, we have like Triple Trio now, Hong Kong is the one who, because we are the host, Hong Kong is the one, and it's our racing product, and Hong Kong is the one who actually put in all the money for all the jackpots, whether you call it bonus bets or free bets or whatnot, or kind of huge jackpot, 1-2 million pound, no problem. But when it comes to a World Pool event, it's an event for everybody. You do not expect the host track to be putting that one in, so it has to come from the wagering operator. And then since it is a global pool of wagering operator, that has to be discussed. And one mechanism I would suggest would be similar to how they do Euro Million in the lottery world. I think that would be a good example of how you would do it. But of course, there will be commercial discussions, but I'm sure there's some precedents that at least they work for more than 2 decades, last time I checked.
Yeah, absolutely clear. I wanted to mention those two possibilities as well, the Euro Millions and also the Euro jackpots. They have some interesting systems, how to handle also a jackpot system and let's say a shadow jackpot. And we should start the discussion about a global bet as soon as possible. And but that leads me to another point. We were discussing the liquidity and the size of the pools. Is there any chance from your point of view to bring Japan to the party?
Well, again, I'm not the expert to know about Japan, but from what I know, Japan and Korea, they are commingling is actually not in their laws. So that would be similar to Hong Kong 10 years ago. Yeah. It's illegal for us to do any commingling activity. So I think, Japan, Korea will be great market to add into the global racing scene. Especially Japan, if you look at the strength of their pool size as well as their thoroughbreds these days. But I think there will be a long legal process that I think will even struggle to attract Japanese members to join WATA.
Yeah, well, earlier or later, we might interest them to join the party. Many thanks for your answers and for your information, Richard. I think we should now hand over to Sam and Wayne. Again, a warm welcome, Wayne Henrys, and to Sam, buonasera. Please start.
Buonasera, Hubert. Nice to see you again. Hello, everybody. Wayne and I will tic-tac through today's presentation. I'll concentrate more on the commercial elements of the project, and then I'll leave Wayne to tackle the deeper technical aspects. The project name for what we're going to talk about today, the new commingling protocol, is being developed by the Hong Kong Jockey Club. Internally, we're referring to it as Racing Wagering Information and Transaction Integrity Protocols, RWITIP. Obviously, that is extremely wordy. In a commercial sense, and with our external partners, we will increasingly be referring to this as the World Pool Platform, which helps us coalesce with some of the other World Pool strategies, which Richard has already touched upon in that earlier presentation. As you can imagine, this project is a huge undertaking, and hopefully it will bear some fruit. But it is an incredibly large project with a significant scope. But having said that, it does align very much with the Hong Kong Jockey Club's view that this is a progression into the next generation of international commingling. So as you can see on your screen now is a slide that covers off the 4 key objectives, which have been broken down into boxes, and I will touch on each of them.
Sorry,
that's okay. That's it. Perfect. Thank you. So around improving integrity controls, there are a couple of different elements to this. One is at the AML and financial crime level. I think everybody involved in this industry has seen over the past 5 or 6 years, particularly, an increase in expectation around both financial crime frameworks and AML. There's a general consensus that the wagering industry is following banking. And if that's the case, we can expect to see even more stringent controls coming into play that each of us will be responsible for. At various levels, I guess it moves at different tempo depending on where you are, but certainly something that we need to be very mindful of. And the second point is more at a customer level, and that is around what we've termed in this deck as anti-odds crushing. And clearly, late collations can create significant changes in odds, which has always been a big negative for pari-mutuel wagering, especially is increasingly in different parts of the world, not so much Hong Kong, of course, but in different parts of the world where fixed odds is really seen as a growing competitor to pari-mutuel. It's one of the big negative perceptions for sure. Expanding racing wagering data set versus ITSP is fairly self-explanatory, but data, as they say, is king these days, and more and more is required. And we'll talk more about customers how that fits in on the next slide. But in terms of the integration process, the commingling protocols of the World Pool platform aims to reduce cost and the time to market for new partners, and also the ability to increase the parimutuel offering, which is important. And again, it was something that Richard touched upon in the previous presentation about expanding parimutuel products, especially relevant for the World Pool itself, but also in isolation. And that's sort of covered off in that second point, where we often see an inability for implementation of new products because of rule settings and engine centralized at the host. And I think that, going back to Hubert's point, when he was talking about the global bit, it's significantly one of the huge obstacles to any such outcome is harmonization of rules and perhaps systems as well. The third box, first on the second line, if you like, there is around supporting large combinations and fixed odds bet types. I should point out that the Hong Kong Jockey Club, in terms of racing, with the exception of the Jockeys Challenge and potentially in the future some other championship bets, is all pari-mutual, and there's no expectation in the short term that will change, but the fixed odds component is being included in the World Pool platform, with the expectation that third parties may pick up and use this protocol in the future. So all aspects are being covered, but I just want to make the point that it's not an intention for the Hong Kong Jockey Club to change strategy around that in the foreseeable future. And I guess that third point there clarifies and confirms that. The enhancement of provision of information, I mean, this is not really going to surprise anyone, but the calculation of odds and the frequency of those calculations is becoming more and more important if pari-mutuel is to compete against fixed odds offerings, and that consistency is important. Automated delivery of information across the whole racing cycle is obviously very important, and the consistent availability of rich racing information. As I've said a couple of times already, but I think we're all aware of the point that the customer in 2022 and in the years ahead, and the generational shifts, Gen Z especially, rely very much on the expectation of more and more information and ways in which they process that information. If I just go to the third slide before I will hand over to Wayne. And look, basically, in terms of the Hong Kong Jockey Club, I think it's fair to say that one of our high priorities locally and internationally is customer experience. I mean, so many of the decisions that are made within the club, whether it's local racing or what I'm more heavily involved in, the commingling, we always reflect on what does that look like for the customer journey. And I think that that's strongly aligned to what we're talking about here today as well. And the club will more and more in the future look at customer centricity as being our number one objective. And a lot of what you see on this slide is clearly just common sense, but it does reiterate the point around what the customer expects to see and what the customer will more and more immerse themselves in the future. And there's that, that full cycle of results, dividends, and payout to customers, back then through to the racing and the wagering information being available to the customers, and the customers placing bets with local operators. And that cycle is never ending. I won't go through each of those little boxes because I don't think there's any need to, and obviously you'll have access to this deck at a later point anyway to read through them at a more wholesale level. But I think at this point I'll throw back over to Wayne, and I'll join back in a little later on.
Thanks, Sam. Please jump in at any stage. So two key elements to the protocols that we have been working on at the Jockey Club in the current phase of work. The first of those is racing wagering transactions. And here we're looking to introduce a business-to-business bet-by-bet protocol. So as represented here on the screen, that the guest will still take bets from their customers via whatever the existing channels are, including by bet-by-bet business to consumer protocols. But what we're looking to introduce is a new B2B bet-by-bet protocol. And one key element for that is that we still expect that the guest, the partner in the jurisdiction of the end customer, will take the bet from the customer. They will then place a transaction B2B with the host. So in this example, Hong Kong is the host. Hong Kong may take bets from a direct guest, or they may take bets via a hub. So even within a B2B bet-by-bet transaction situation, there is still a role for a hub in multi-host interconnects for guests to get access to multiple hosts without having to have multiple connections. They could still choose to use a hub. Currency conversion, so within our bet-by-bet protocol, we do support multi-currency in the protocol. However, it is one of those things that it will then be up to a host and guest to implement whether they will host only in their home currency or they will host on multiple currencies. So yeah, just to confirm again, something that's come up as we've gone through the protocol is that the host will strike a bet with the guest will strike a bet with the customer. The selling of the bet will pass via the B2B protocol. The payout of the individual bets will come back across the same path, and then settlement will also occur using the protocol. So settlement at the host to partner or host to guest level. The other element of the protocol is racing wagering information. In this case, we want to support a range of different information in a more consistent way. We know that this is somewhat the holy grail in racing wagering, and that a number of different parties have tried to do this. We know that a number of different parties and participants in WODA have got work going on in this area right now. Our intention is to first start with hot and important information and look to get that standardised, and then over time to standardise more rich data. Our intentions are to provide what we call hot data via streaming data protocols, so that pool status, so that odds and key changes such as scratchings, jockey changes on horses are put out there in a timely fashion for display to the customer. And then to ensure that we have all of the important information going across in an automated way, race card, race results, to ensure that they go across with a minimum of manual handling. And then, as I said, over time, we look to develop more in the rich data space. It certainly is something that we know the customers want, but it's also a challenge because in many different regions, there are unique regional characteristics that we need to look to standardise. Within the current version of the protocol, we've started to do that. So we've started to define the rich, and we have looked to support regional needs within it. We've got some items in there that are, as Sam has said before, that are not something that's supported in Hong Kong, but we want all participants to join on the protocol. We need to meet the needs of those participants. So in putting together the protocol, we've done a number of interactions with a number of partners and parties, and after a series of workshops and a series of collaboration events, taking feedback, developing different versions, we have come up now with a set of wagering transaction services, around about 22 APIs that would support the range of transaction services we need for a B2B racing wagering protocol. So sell, pay, settlement, cancellations, a range of others. Racing wagering information side, we've defined a number of request reply RESTful APIs, and then a smaller number of data streams for the hot information. They're all contained within our current version of the specification that we're now starting to move towards thinking about implementation. So in regards to implementation, we have been looking at what we think are the critical design elements for an implementation. The Jockey Club will host the protocol first, and we're looking at what are the key things we need to do if we're going to run wagering transaction services in a B2B bet-by-bet protocol. One of the key things I'd like to share just quickly without going into too much technical detail is one of the key challenges we have is in shipping transactions back and forth from partner to host. So if we think about it in the current scenario, ITSP, a serial interface, we need effectively one connection per meeting between a partner and a host. That comes with some limitations in the amount of data that we can ship. When we move to a B2B transaction protocol, as Richard has said, we think that this year we will approach 20% of Hong Kong's turnover being from commingled partners. If we converted all of that to a B2B transaction protocol, we could expect upwards of 2 million transactions or 2 million betting tickets being processed on a Hong Kong local meeting. So we have to think about that as we design it. We don't believe that the idea of shipping transactions from the partner in a point-to-point connection back to the Jockey Club as the host is something that's going to give the right experience, that is going to be reliable enough, or hold the integrity in the way that we hope the protocol can implement. So we've looked at this option, but discounted the option for Hong Kong Jockey Club hosting, that we would have direct connections from each partner, from wherever you are to Hong Kong. We've then looked at two other options that we're currently working on. One is where Jockey Club as host would provide regional connection points for partners to connect to send their transactions to. And from that point, you would be on the Hong Kong Jockey Club's network that we would look to provision appropriately for the circumstances. That should be able to allow us to get more consistent and higher performing, lower latency shipping of transactions from our regional hubs back to the Jockey Club as a host, and then back the other way when we're paying our bets. The other thing that we are now looking at as well, we're doing some proof of concept technology work on, is to do some of the time critical processing of the bet on the edge. So we are looking at the potential for the Jockey Club's implementation of the protocol to have the API interface in the region, and then to also look to do some of the processing out there on the edge in the region. So using distributed ledger technology to allow us to process some of the time critical functions when placing or paying a bet out on the edge, but synchronizing them efficiently back with Hong Kong as the host. So while some of the processing happens out there, the bet would still be struck the B2B bet would still be struck in Hong Kong on the Hong Kong platform. So that's a key piece of technology work we've still got underway, something that we need to make some decisions about as we now consider to head into implementation of the protocol. I think I'll hand back to Sam to talk a little bit. I know this topic came up earlier about our thinking about how we might do a product roadmap.
Yes, and as you can see on your screen now, this is our roadmap in terms of the rollout. And the first phase is aligned to the Jockey Club as host. We'll talk more about the potential for us to outbound commingle a little bit later. But as you can see, the key milestones on the left-hand side and the objectives or the outcomes, strategic outcomes on the right-hand side, and they're quite important. I think if I sort of concentrate on 102 for the moment, the quartet and the first four is not currently offered to our commingling partners and would not be except without the use of the protocol. So what that allows us to do is increase our commingling offering and also increase our commingling revenue. So a really important one, hence why we've decided that that's right at the pointy end of the product.
Sorry, Sam, if I could just add from a technology perspective, the quartet and first four is a merged pool in Hong Kong, but also with our collation and merging technology, we're able to calculate odds for every combination in the quartet and the first four. So by shipping, by having all the transactions with the Jockey Club as a host, we'll be able to produce full matrix odds for quartet and first four.
Yes, and so that obviously is an exciting potential outcome from the Jockey Club's perspective. Some of the multi-leg bets, such as double trio, triple trio, and six up, which we currently use TXLV to support, would no longer be required, which we think would be a significant step forward. And then our four big guns, if you like, the Win Place, Quinella, and Quinella Place, they are the big pools, not just locally, but obviously from the commingling perspective as well. And we see the importance of that, in accordance with what I touched upon a little bit earlier, increasing the integrity of high volume bet types, which is exactly what they are. And despite the huge liquidity in the Hong Kong Jockey Club pools, you still see some pretty significant late moves being driven both locally and from our commingling partners. And then the rollout is sort of continues on from there. I think I would touched on the fixed odds around the Jockey's Challenge and the Trainers Challenge. I mean, if there is actually a possibility that while the fixed odds component is being built for a complete and structured protocol, there is also a possibility that those odds could be offered to our commingling partners. Not commingling in the truest sense of the word, because it's not pari-mutual, but in a similar kind of way with similar types of outcomes, whether it's a clip of the ticket or whether it's actually a managed liquidity on the Hong Kong Jockey Club side. So options and opportunities there for sure. And then through some rich information rollouts and some of the smaller bet types in terms of volume, being the forecast, the trio, and the treble, and some of those are limited in where they are offered internationally for a host of reasons, including technology restrictions and the like. And if we just go to the next slide, then we talk more about the idea of Hong Kong Jockey Club as a guest. The key part here, I think, is that while Richard outlined, we do some outbound commingling, but just for the Win and Place into PMU for a number of French meetings during the year, we effectively, for all intents and purposes, do not commingle out as a guest at this particular point in time. That can and most likely will change with the protocol, with the Whirlpool platform. It will enable us to potentially go into other jurisdictions as a guest, where we wouldn't decide to do that now. And so long as obviously the host has the technology, then we would be capable of doing that, and we would be willing to do that. And that would be a really important deviation from where the club has been in the past. And what that would also do, going back to the World Pool itself, is increase the opportunities for World Pool meetings. Again, at the moment, there are a number of jurisdictions where we take simulcast racing that could become World Pools, either with us as a host or our partner as the host and us as a guest, but can't happen just for the moment because of other constraints. And we're continuing to have conversations with those partners. I mean, an obvious example is Australia. We take 4 meetings per year as part of our 37 simulcast schedule from Australia. Ideal for us to incorporate them into the World Pool. But obviously there are some technical hurdles to get over and even some regulatory ones to get over. The Hong Kong Jockey Club becoming a guest into those pools into the future would help overcome some of those issues. And you know, most of the other points there we've touched on at some particular point throughout this conversation. So I won't go into them again in any great depth. But again, just to touch on the Jockeys Challenge, you know, it may be a possibility for one of our partners who are offering a fixed odds on a Jockeys Challenge, say, for instance, for our customers here in Hong Kong, to then utilize this World Pool protocol to bet into that, not pool, of course, but into that offering by a partner. And the final one.
Sorry, if perhaps I can just add is that obviously we're aware that for commingling at all, there needs to be participants at either end. So this is an indicative roadmap, but I guess it will play out in different ways depending on how we develop with different participants.
Yes, and the last slide, I guess we might put this one under blue sky to some extent, and it might even be the holy grail of outcomes. And I did touch upon it earlier when talking about harmonization, but this idea of generalizing the exotics in a pick end scenario, you know, I mean, even for the Jockey Club, we have a treble, a pick 3 here, which has certain rules and a consolation payout. The Quadrella in Australia has a substitution rule. Basically, every pick end around the globe has its own nuance. And if we're ever going to get to that true international commingling on pick ends, or as it's been referred to a couple of times, the global bet concept, then the harmonization of those rules does provide an opportunity. It's something that's been talked about for a long time, and I imagine it will be talked about for a long time still, but certainly it's on our radar as being a really important priority for the future of international commingling at the level of this type of exotic wager for sure. So I won't go into any more of the detail there. I'm just mindful of time, and I'm sure there are a few questions that we can dive into as well. But hopefully that's given you some, I guess, clarification on what the Jockey Club's aspirations are and where we're headed. As I said, there's a huge undertaking here with a huge team, both under Wayne, who have done a terrific job to this point, and also under my team in commingling, and hopefully we'll have something, you know, to show for it towards the end of this year and early next year.
Thank you, Sam and Wayne. Very impressive presentation. And my first question must be, what is the time schedule for implementing those things?
I think I'll let Wayne answer that one.
I thought I was going to let you take that one, Sam. Yeah. So at this stage, we're working on that proof of concept that I mentioned about. Some of it's about the network, and some of it's about our capacity to process the volume of bets that we need to. Everything being equal, we'll complete that within the next month or so, and we'll be in a position to publish another version of the protocol and head into implementation. We do want to start to have things out there in round about the end of the first quarter of next year. So around about a year from now, we think we can start flowing out some of those items on the roadmap we put them in a priority order, but there's still some details to work out before we work out exactly which order we might do them in. We'd like to start putting things out as host the end of Q1 next year. So around about this time next year, we would like to have partner or partners with us at that point in time.
And you plan also to introduce something like a transfer period, so that all the partners can continue to bet even if they don't have the new technology in place.
So yeah, part of that roadmap planning is such that, you know, the first bet type we start with is one that we don't commingle on ITSP. So yeah, it would be if you want to commingle with us on this bet type, then please use the protocol. And then as we head to more exotic bet types, we're encouraging those that don't currently commingle, for instance, on TT or 6UP, because of some of the complexities of the product, that they can use the protocol. So some encouragement first with opening up things that were not as easy over ITSP. But you're right, as we move to the other bet types, we will look at what timelines look like to migrate partners across. Perhaps the one thing we've got underlying that at the moment is that we on each bet type, on each pool type, we don't want any partner to be using ITSP and the protocol at the same time. But we do understand it is going to take some time to migrate from ITSP to the new protocol.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense. One question in general about the commingling and the cooperations and hosting the Toad. Is there a limit in your system to host, for example, 2, 3, 4, 5 different meetings parallel? Is that possible?
In the Jockey Club system as host,
yeah.
At the moment, we can host 3 concurrent meetings. Obviously, as world pools expand and other opportunities for us expand, we have plans to expand that capacity as well.
Okay, so that means that parallel, for example, to one domestic fixture, you could handle two further from outside. So very interesting. Yeah,
that's correct. Right.
Yeah, Hubert, I might just add to that, and that will expand even further. It's unlikely that we ever would, to be honest, because of the nature of the customer journey, as I referred to earlier. But so there's two parts to the question. From a technical system perspective, that will be expanded, and the opportunities to do so will grow as Wayne has outlined. But it's important, I think, to point out that from a Hong Kong Jockey Club perspective, it's not necessarily something that is driven by content, as is the case in other jurisdictions. But certainly the potential, and we might even see it without giving away any secrets now, we may even see something happen concurrently later in the year around international racing, which will be the first time, I think, that we've ever done it with 2 meetings crossing over and taking races from each of them. So that necessity, especially for opening them pools on other race meetings that are close by, does expand the horizon and the options.
Okay, one question which came from our participants. If you run the new bet-by-bet protocol with regional Toad acceptance and regional ledger processing, which are really essential for local user experience and latency, what time frame do you hope to synchronize with Hong Kong? And how will you handle the issues in the rare circumstances when synchronization falls prior to pool race start?
Yeah, so the first part of that question, we currently have an aim to synchronize within 1 second. We put a limit on it of 2 seconds. However, the point is correct, is that if for some reason our internal synchronization failed and it was taking longer than that period, then it would hold up betting at that point. It would even hold up betting if it was not around the start of the race. So as part of that, that's why it's critical for us, we believe, in regards to the network design.
Okay, so further question is, will the protocol supply the full ticket ledger back to commingling hosts, then have Jen said clients that expect cash out on their products?
The pool itself, the host, the Jockey Club as host, is not supporting cash out on parimutuel products. The protocol itself doesn't support a cash out function on the parimutuel products. The details of the ticket, though, full details of the ticket, obviously the guest has those details. The payout of each of those tickets, there's a number of different options as to how you do that. Most likely it would be full details on each ticket that has got some credit owing on it, whether that's a refund or a payout or some other reason, but that we would likely, in most cases, not ship back losing tickets. If the guest then wants to do something with the ticket after that, then obviously they have the details to be able to do that. So I think, for example, if we were talking about some type of guarantee function that the guests wanted to run, we believe they can still do that when they get the payout back, but it doesn't support early cash out.
There's a follow-up. Will the supply all the pool's tickets so commingling hosts can do their own cash out calculation and offer, is the question?
Not at this stage, no. It wouldn't be an intention, and there'd be some issues raised if the host ledger was exposed back to all of the partners. So no.
Okay. One question from my side. We have in the moment those 5 bet types: Win Place, Quinella Place, and the TRC. In the next months, which bet types will before the new protocol starts will be added? Will it be a quartet or will it be something other?
Sorry, I'm not sure I get the question quite.
We have in the moment in the World Pool the Win, the Place, the Quinella and the Quinella Place and the TRC. Will you add further bet types in the next months?
Yeah, okay. So for the World Pool, there is an intention to expand bet types. Of course, this is unrelated to the protocol, just to be clear, but we intend to roll out both the Pick 3, which Richard mentioned a little bit earlier, the Trio, and potentially also the Exacta, which is a relatively new bet type in Hong Kong, to the World Pool offering throughout this year. The Exacta in the UK is, I think, a more popular bet type than the Quinella, which is one of our core products. So for on-course customers, especially, say at Royal Ascot, we think a bet type like the Exacta would be particularly useful and beneficial. So that's the plan in the short term. The longer term, every year we'll look to incrementally grow the World Pool, and obviously the intention is to also have what might be considered a jackpot type bet. We had actually considered the Triple Trio as a possibility, even for Royal Ascot this year. But ultimately, we thought that locally there wasn't enough interest in the Triple Trio, which isn't usually offered on international race meetings, and also perhaps being somewhat new to UK customers as well. So in the end, we decided against that. It might end up being that we support PlaySpot in that place in the future, or again, a different bet type altogether. But there certainly is an expectation here, but to finalise that point, to incrementally increase the bet types available on World Pool meetings right around the world, including places like South Africa, who currently don't take or participate in the tiers as part of their World Pool for technical reasons.
Okay, I don't have further questions here on my list. If you see some further questions,
Sure.
if
I've got one here, Hubert. Will the protocol allow for data in relation to trotting greyhounds and sports pools? The answer to that is the wagering transaction already allows for that. The wagering transaction format in the specification, both for parimutuel and for fixed odds. The information part of the protocol, we understand exactly how to expand it to those areas, but right now it's not covered. So it's an extension, to multi-sports, whether those sports happen to be, harness and greyhounds or football. We understand how to expand the information protocol, and we've allowed for that in the design, but we don't currently cover it.
Okay. A further question is, will you consider developing a generic pick-and pool?
That's definitely the intention, Hubert, for sure. And that could form both part of the local racing offering, a world pool offering, or perhaps for both. But the idea that we envisage is that a pick-and pool is really important and intrinsic, I think, in most parts of the world to growing the world pool.
Thank you for that. Do you have any further questions, Wayne?
No,
Sam or Richard? If not, I want to say many thanks to all the three presenters. It was a great presentation, and I can only say, let's work together, all the participants, all the members in VOTA. If we work together, then we have really the great chance to keep the industry alive and to save the future of horse racing and betting. And I'm quite sure that all members will agree with that. Again, many thanks to Richard, Sam, and Wayne for your presentations and for your expertise. Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.